Mouthwashes. Many people use them worldwide. It is recommended by dentists and could be considered an essential item found in your own bathroom. Of the many brands of mouthwashes, Listerine is one of the big brands. It claims to kill 99% of bad breath germs.
Complete the job with Listerine. Help prevent plaque, early gum disease, bad breath, and kill up to 99.9% of germs. Listerine. Bring out the bold.
A close look at its ingredients shows that benzoic acid in the mouthwash prevents microbial growth and helps adjust pH in the product. According to Listerine.uk website, the original formulation was discovered in 1879 by Dr. Joseph Lawrence as an effective antiseptic for use in surgical procedures. The ownership of the Listerine formula was then transferred to a pharmacist, Jordan Wheat Lambert, in 1881, who then formed the Lambert Pharmaco Company. Since 1895, Lambert then started marketing Listerine to dentists as an oral antiseptic, which is a chemical that can kill bacteria or germs as we now know it to be. But who came up with the idea that germs are the cause of infections and that there are chemicals that can be manufactured to kill them? Behind the name of the brand Listerine is actually the story of one man who revolutionized how medical surgeries all across the world are being carried out, making them safe and in turn saved countless lives in his day and beyond. He was also known as the father of antiseptic surgery. Although Joseph Lawrence developed the first antiseptic formulation, he named it Listerine in honor of a British surgeon and medical scientist, Dr. Joseph Lister. Born in 1827 in Upton, Essex, England, to a prosperous and educated Quaker family, Joseph Lister attended Quaker schools, which placed strong emphasis in the sciences, giving him a strong foundation in his subsequent life career. He attended the University of London, earning his Bachelor of Arts degree in 1847, and thereafter studied medicine and surgery. Besides practicing medicine, Joseph Lister was also a scientist, centering his research on inflammation and how it affects wound healing. Inflammation in those days was considered a specific disease and not a response by healthy tissues to infection. Through his research, he came to understand that inflammation caused a loss of vitality, rendering tissues helpless as if they were dead, and helpless against bacteria that causes surgical sites infection. Joseph Lister was so brilliant that at the age of 33, he was appointed Regius Professor of Surgery at the University of Glasgow, a position founded by King George III in 1815. While it may be common knowledge today that germs cause infections, back in the 1800s it wasn't so. In the 19th century, although a surgical procedure may have been deemed successful, patients often died after the surgery from infection-related conditions like gangrene, a condition when body tissue dies and decomposes due to bacterial infection or a lack of blood flow. Or sepsis, a medical condition when bacteria enters the bloodstream and spreads to multiple organs in the body. This most often causes death. No one back then really knew what the cause of these infections were or how they spread. The prevailing thought back then was that miasma, an ancient Greek term for pollution or a noxious form of bad air, was responsible for the spread of diseases, such that hospitals simply aired out the surgical wards in midday in order to avoid the spread of infection. In fact, surgeons then took pride in wearing blood-stained, hardened operating gowns caked in dried blood as a hallmark of their experience in the surgical trenches. Pus, the thick fluid that we know today as caused by infection containing bacteria and dead immune cells, was seen as a natural part of the healing process rather than a sign of serious infection. It was no surprise that the number of deaths post-operatively kept climbing. In fact, the situation was so dire that one prominent surgeon, Sir James Young Simpson, who in the 1860s declared that a man laid on the operating table in one of our surgical hospitals is exposed to more chance of death than was the English soldier on the field of Waterloo. However, enter Joseph Lister, who through a radical idea found a way to prevent infection in wounds before, during, and after surgery. He was the first person to apply the science of germ theory to surgery. So what is germ theory? In 1861, a French chemist by the name of Louis Pasteur proved that food spoilage was caused by contamination by a then invisible bacteria. While working at Glasgow University as professor of surgery in 1864, Joseph Lister was introduced to Pasteur's germ theory of disease. He read Pasteur's papers Recherches sur la putréfaction and postulated that the same process involved in fermentation was also involved in wound infection. Joseph Lister then decided to apply it to the problem of surgical infections. As a wound dresser for Sir John Erik Ericsson, who was a British surgeon who believed that wounds were infected from miasmas that arose from the wound themselves and concentrated in the air, Joseph Lister found that some of the wounds healed after dead tissue were removed and the wounds cleaned. This created a suspicion that something in the wound was responsible for causing infections. Hence, Joseph Lister used a chemical barrier to prevent germs from entering a wound. This chemical he chose was phenol, also known as carbolic acid. Carbolic acid was back then an effective disinfectant for sewers. After confirming that it was safe to be used on human flesh, Joseph Lister used diluted carbolic acid to wash his hands and sanitize surgical instruments before surgeries. After surgeries, he also covered his patients' wounds with a piece of lint containing carbolic acid, and even devised an instrument for spraying carbolic acid into the air of operating theatres. To spread the results of antisepsis, or the practice of using an agent to destroy microorganisms that cause diseases, Joseph Lister published a series of articles in The Lancet, a medical academic journal that is still one of the leading medical journals today, documenting the success of carbolic acid in the prevention of infection. In 1867, Joseph Lister operated on an 11-year-old boy named James Greenlees, who suffered from a fracture of his left lower leg after being ran over by a cart on the street. After washing the wound, Lister applied a dressing of carbolic acid over the wound in addition to splinting the fracture and bandaging the wound. The carbolic acid dressing was changed several times, and as the wound healed over 6 weeks, Greenlees fully recovered without any infection. Joseph Lister later went on to report that with his new methods, between 1865 and 1869, surgical mortality fell from 45 to 15% in his male accident ward. This was a remarkable feat, given that between 1861 and 1865, about 45 to 50% of amputation cases in that ward died from sepsis. But as with any revolutionary idea ahead of his time, Joseph Lister soon met with fierce skepticism and opposition from fellow renowned surgeons of his day, giants of the field. It was understandable given that germs were too small to be seen in microscopes made then. One of the arguments was that the use of antiseptic methods slowed surgery down, and this was in a time when speed during surgery was crucial to minimize pain and blood loss. Other surgeons also found it hard to accept a new practice or theory, given that they had embraced the fact that lots of patients will die from surgery, and it was just an acceptable part of surgery. However, after 12 long years, Lister's system of antisepsis gained widespread acceptance, starting with Germany leading the way, followed by the United States, France, and then Great Britain. From then on, Joseph Lister's contributions to medical science forever changed the way the medical industry looked at sanitation and proper hygiene, and reframed the minds of physicians and surgeons to the necessity of keeping wounds clean and free from contamination. Today, we take antiseptic methods for granted. To perform surgery using unsterilized instruments today would be unthinkable. But remember that there was a time where people frequently died not because of surgery, but because of unhygienic practices due to a lack of understanding of what was the true cause of diseases. And even though Joseph Lister was not involved in the invention of Listerine, nor did he benefit from it, millions of people today rinse their mouths with this antiseptic mouthwash named in his honor. And perhaps another important lesson is that, as Linus Pauling, a Nobel laureate who also is known as the father of molecular biology, elegantly puts it, that quote, "Science is the search for the truth. It is not a game in which one tries to beat his opponent to do harm to others." In light of compelling scientific evidence, we should guard against hostility to change for the sake of preserving present-day established dogma. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed or gained some knowledge from this video, do hit the like button and subscribe so you can be notified of future videos. Hope to see you soon. Until then, stay safe and healthy.